What is going on, everyone? This is Ryan with the Roundtable of Wraith, bringing you episode 2 in Perfecting Prism. The higher-ups at the company called after last week's episode and renewed us for a second ep. So I want to thank you guys for, viewing the episode, commenting on the episode. It was awesome. I thought, hey, I'm going to put this out there and 50 people are going to see it and I'm going to be happy. And, I got way more feedback than that. So thank you guys. I'm most excited for just the collaboration that was taking place, the questions that were being asked and stuff, because it seems that people that are watching this are excited about this character, and I love it. I mean, Prism's, like I said last week, Prism is my favorite character in the game. She's just so nuanced, I think, and she's really fun to play, most importantly. So I'm going to keep putting these out as long as you guys keep watching and commenting and stuff like that. And so one of the big questions that I got a few people asked in the comments was, hey, what's your sideboard notes? What do you do in the sideboard? And, when I first started playing, maybe, I don't know, when did we start? January-ish? Sideboarding was such a foreign concept to me. We came from Star Wars Destiny, where it was like, you run your 30 cards and that's it. You don't run anything more than 30 cards, and that's just what you're playing. And so sideboarding is just something that I struggled with and still do. Like, if I'm not playing Prism or, some of the other characters that I'm familiar with, I look at a deck list online and I kind of am lost. So I'm sure there are other people out there that, feel like me, that are just not confident with the sideboarding choices. And hopefully this at least gives you kind of somewhat of a guide to Prism. This is, again, not set in stone. This is not like this is the correct way to run Prism. It's just what I've been doing in certain matchups. So I'm going to give you guys kind of my thought process as to why I run cards in certain matchups, or why, I guess, the way that I structured it, why I don't run cards in certain matchups. Before we start, I did change the list from last week. I don't know if you click the link in the last week's video, if it goes to my updated list. So I'll post another list, or the new list in the description below. But I did take out one red Herald of Protection and one yellow Herald of Protection. I know. Relax. I know it's a good card. But I added the third Ode to Wrath. I know I needed to do that. I said I needed to do that, so I did that right away. And then I added the third red War Tune Herald. So I have a full suite of the War Tunes now. And then I'm down to 2 red protections, 2 yellow protections, and then the 3 blues. I'm just testing life without them. I know the on-hit is probably the best on-hit of any of the Heralds, creating a Spectral Shield. So it's just something that I'm going to see if I like it or not. But yeah, so just testing that out. I like the 1 cost for the War Tune. It just becomes more, it's been more relevant, and I wanted that extra 1 for 7 in certain matchups. And then, yeah, Ode to Wrath, I had to have all 3. So before I get into my notes for my sideboard here, I'm going to get into some of the cards that I've been considering. People have been asking me about, or just cards that I've been, tossing around in my brain, just to see what I think about them. First being Pummels, red and yellow. Pummel, I ran Pummel pretty much the entirety of my Prism experience. I've been running yellow Pummel. I like it. It's good. But the reason I cut it recently is because I know I sound like a broken record, but that chain matchup, right? Chain is very much like Katsu in that he doesn't really care about his hand all that much because he knows he's going to get some banish after his turn. So being able to, or forcing Chain to discard a card has largely been ineffective. Now, Pummel's great against Dorinthia. It's great against Bolton, especially if they block with a card in hand or whatever. You want to eat up their hands. But Chain doesn't really care as much. Neither is Katsu, and Katsu's gaining in popularity. He just won that charity tournament, so he's definitely somebody that you have to test around or be aware of, because he's going to start popping up at these Road to Nationals events. So be aware of Katsu. And they don't care about their hand, right? Katsu can function off of 2 cards. He's fine with it. So what I found is against those 2 specifically, Chain and Katsu, you want to be able to threaten 13 to 14 damage a turn with Heralds, right? You want, a yellow Herald, 6 go again, followed by a red Herald, 7 go again. And then if you have follow-up attacks, if you have tomes and erudition hits or whatever, that has been a more effective game plan for me. A lot of times, I would have these hands where I have like 1 Herald or 2 Heralds and a Pummel, and it's like, do I Pummel this? Do I care about it? Because the on-hit effects of the Heralds really aren't that great. Ravages has the The Arcane Protection has the Spectral Shield, which is by far the best. And then you have Judgment and Erudition. But if you lead out with a Judgment or an Erudition, any player, if you have 2 cards or 3 cards or a card in Arsenal, every player is going to assume that a Pummel is coming. Okay? So that's why it was awkward. Like, it's not like Bravo where he can threaten it every turn and it's like this game of like, well, does he have it? Does he not have it? Every time I was playing out a Herald, like an on-hit Herald that I wanted to pummel, it was like, oh, you have Pummel, so I'm going to overblock this and I'm fine. The red Pummel is spicy because a lot of times I think the players right now are conditioned to blocking 3 over because they think it's a yellow Pummel. So if you run the red Pummel and they block, let's say you're threatening for 6 and they block 9, now you red Pummel and now it's a 10. So that's more relevant, I think, but it's also counterintuitive to what we're trying to do with the deck, you know, the yellow and get those go-agains and all that stuff. So Pummel is interesting. I would never fault anybody for running Pummel. This is just the reason why I cut Pummel. I have not missed it so far, but this might be something that very much ends up back in my deck as time goes on. It's just testing life without it. And like I said, I haven't missed it yet, but we'll see. If you're Pummel truthers out there, tell me why Pummel is just fantastic and belongs in every single deck. But otherwise, try life without it. You know, try to see how it goes. Blinding Beam. Everyone always goes to Blinding Beam because it's like, oh, against Leviah, it's so good. Like, you can beat Leviah without this card, without the trick stuff. She's really not that much of a matchup. It's not as difficult as I think people thought it was. And this card really doesn't, like, Chain doesn't care about this card. You know, you can basically erase a Shadow of Ursa, or like a meet and greet. It can go down to, you know, 1 or whatever, but it's not that great of a card. It doesn't block. You know, it costs 1 unless you're against a Shadow Hero, which there are only 2 in the game. So it's a dead card to everybody else. I would not run this card. I just don't think the utility here is just not as good for, you know, taking spots in the deck. That's the problem with Prism, is that she doesn't have a lot of spots in the deck. There's not a lot of wiggle room. And this is one of those cards where I just, based on all the cards that I'm considering, this doesn't fit. Glisten is a card that I would consider. I think Glisten could be sneaky good, especially in like an aura control matchup where you want to pump those auras up or the spectral shields to like a 5 damage every turn, and then you just protect it by blocking it with your hand. If it does get destroyed, it feels bad, but there are ways where you can, you know, keep this thing alive and have like this souped up spectral shield where you're just dealing 5 a turn, 5 a turn, 5 a turn. So Glisten is an interesting one. If you've had success with Glisten, I really want to hear it. And I mean, I would love to have a conversation about, you know, what card do you run Glisten, or what card do you take out for Glisten? How do you play it? What's the best utility? It could be sneaky, right? You can poke with 1. If they declare no blocks, you instant Glisten for +4, +3 if you're running yellow. And now instead of them poking by 1, now they're poking by 4 or 5. So Glisten could be good. I don't dislike the Glisten call. This is something that I can see working my way into a deck. But as of right now, I just haven't used it. I haven't needed it in those grindy matchups, but it could help significantly. Humility, it's the other aura. It's like the odd man out here. I don't like Humility just because for the 4 cost, it just doesn't do enough. You're not worried about the 6 attacks because you're not, you know, running Heralds into Brutes consistently, right? You're not trying to do that. It's good against those generic decks that are going to run Command and Conquer, and that's like their ceiling for their 6s. But other than that, it doesn't really do enough and doesn't justify its cost. 4 is still expensive for any aura, so in order to play a 4 cost aura, it better be really impactful, and this one just doesn't do enough for me. Energy Potion, great card. I have not tested it yet, but I think I really like the idea of it. Just because, you know, so many Prism turns end with, all right, pitch a yellow, Herald Swing, pitch another card, Herald Swing, and then you just have this wasted go again. Like every turn ends with pass Arsenal or whatever it is. So if you have Energy Potion in your arsenal, you swing with 2 Heralds, and then your go again action is to play that Energy Potion to finish your turn. That's a pretty strong power move. So I really like the idea of Energy Potion. I think it does fit. Again, it's just finding space. What do I cut in order to run Energy Potion? But yeah, if you run Energy Potion, again, conversation that I'd like to have about where to slot it in, because I do think it's effective and I do think it fits Prism. Last card is the hot button card right now. It's like the fad of fab. Oh, hey, look what I did there. Snag. Hot take here. Snag is a bad card. It's not a good card, but it does effectively counter one of the boogeymen in the format, and that's the seeds riftbind play of chain at the end of the game. I think this better fits like Bravo. Like this belongs in a Bravo side deck where you don't really have a bad chain matchup and you only lose to that one strategy. Then yeah, Bravo can effectively run this card. But for us, it doesn't do enough. It does not aid our strategy at all against chain. I'm going to talk about what we do want to do against chain, or at least what I want to do against chain. And Snag doesn't help that cause. So Snag does not belong in a Prism deck, in my opinion. And I really, it's just not good against anybody else. It's decent against Bolton, but one of the things that you need to know against Bolton is, let's say he plays via the Vanguard, right? And he charges twice. So now V's coming at you for 5. That, you can snag that card, right? And now it's down to 3. But if he uses his Snapdragon Scalers or he finds another way to give that go again, his next attack is still buffed, right? If you read Snag, it only says attack action cards can't gain attack by their own effect or the effects of attack reaction cards. So the V buff of the +2 sticks throughout the entire chain. It just doesn't work on V. So yes, you can make it awkward for them. You can cause them to bust their Snapdragons earlier. But if they give that go again, then they can still continue their turn unhinged. Okay, so keep that in mind when you're playing this card, or if you're playing this card and you're playing that matchup specifically. It probably doesn't work the way that you want it to work. Yeah, so Snag, I don't think is a good card. It only counters that one chain play, and it doesn't fit our strategy at all. Sideboard notes, Drumroll. I did make a Google Doc here that you could see I put a lot of hard work into making this animated and all that stuff and adding color to it. Artistic talent is not my number one skill here, as you can probably tell. But I do have this in the Google Doc, so I will post this link. I'll post the Google Doc in the description of the video. You should be able to access it. If not, obviously just message me, and I can maybe make this public or whatever. I'm not the best tech guy either, as you can probably tell. But so here's my just rough guide. This is what I've been trying. This has been relatively successful, I would say, but this is a fluid work in progress. This is not the end all be all, like I have said before. So if you maybe you're big on running Command and Conquer against Chain, love to hear it. So Chain, Boogeyman, number 1. I cut the CNCs. So like my sideboarding is I put basically all 74 cards together and I pull out the cards that I don't want. I don't side out different cards and have different piles everywhere. It's just pull out these 12 and then now I have a deck of 62. So Chain, no Command and Conquers, no Prismatic Shields, no Ode to Wraths, no Soul Shields. The reason for those guys is you need to put as much pressure on Chain in the first 3 to 4 rounds of the game. If you can get it down to where he's blocking turn 5 and not, if he has 5 shackles and he's got half health left, you're probably in bad shape. That's just how it is. That's how Chain matchups go. Unless he missed every one of his shackles, he's probably going to win that game. So you want to get him very, very low on health. You want to threaten Husk as fast as you can. You want to get that off the table and make him start leaking blood debt. And you do that by just giving everything go again. Herald go again. Herald go again. Threaten 13 to 14 damage a turn. Have timely Arclight Sentinels. Have timely Tome turns. Merciful Retribution is kind of a nightmare for Chain because he doesn't want to take that arcane damage. So every time, a Spectral Shield pops, if you make it, or an aura pops, he takes an arcane damage. So a lot of the auras can kind of, hurt him. Genesis gets out of control if he's not taking it seriously. A good Chain player is going to be able to do some attacks and then, finish with a sword swing and pop Genesis or pop your Sentinel or not Sentinel, or pop your Retribution, whatever it is. But like I said, my strategy of just going balls to the wall, Herald, aggro, and then, having timely Arclight Sentinels, arsenaling Arclight for that big turn. I like to find when Chain banishes, 3 to 4 attacks, that's when I like to pop off my Arclight Sentinel. Some of them are running Time Skippers to get around it, but Time Skippers is not an instant. So if they play a Seeds of Agony and then you play Arclight Sentinel, they would have to spend 3 to pop that. Then they get 2, so that there is a workaround, but you're forcing them to use resources that they might not want to get rid of. Time Skippers being 3 cost it's expensive. And then if they're running Time Snap potions, there's a chance always that they banish him. Or if they have him in hand, then it's going to they just have to. It's an awkward kind of workaround. If they play Time Snap on the table, unless it's in the first 2 rounds, that means they're probably missing damage somewhere along the line, which is not bad for us. So just know when to play Arclight. Don't just jam it when you get it. Be kind of strategic as to when you're going to play it. But that's usually one of the matchup, it's a matchup MVP, or at least can be. I think I mentioned last video, I played a chain match where I got 3 Arclights on the table, not at the same time, but I got 3 Arclights on the table over the course of the game. And I think I forced Chain to take like 15 blood debt. He cannot keep up with that. He can't deal with that. And I think I won relatively convincingly. So that's your chain match. If you do something different, let me know, and I would be interested to hear, because I think putting our heads together to beat this demon monster is what we need to do. Dorinthia is one of this deck's, or one of Prism's easiest matchups, at least in my opinion, and from what I've tested. It's a pretty similar chain build. You keep the soul shields obviously, because Dorinthia, going over the top of Dorinthia always feels good. Shutting her down when she doesn't want you to feels great. Dorinthia she differs from Chain in that she does not want to block from her hand. She has a little bit more equipment block without the husk, but she does have some more equipment block than, say, like Bolton. But she doesn't want to block from her hand. So if you're pressuring her with 13 to 14 damage a turn with your heralds, then she is going to have a really, really awkward bad time. She doesn't want to block. She probably runs Command and Conquers, maybe some Nourishing Emptinesses, but that's pretty much all for the 6s. So your Herald of Triumphs are always going to be live. She doesn't have any 7s in her deck, so those are always, you play those with utmost confidence. Phantasmaclasm is great against her because you get to hand fix, so you get to kind of peek at what she's trying to do. Which attack reactions are to be expected. So Phantasmaclasm is a fantastic card in this matchup. Arclight Sentinel, again, MVP of this matchup. If she plays like a Sharpened Steel, or she does anything that's before, or like a Iron Song Response, that's the sweet spot. If she plays like Iron Song Response, Spoils of War, you jam an Arclight, and then she's just crying. So the best part about that is, even if she has a Time Snap, right? She swings Dawnblade at Arclight, that attack is like over. That attack did not hit, and then can't swing Dawnblade, which is great. So yeah, that's the Dorinthia matchup. Not that difficult, but it is Dorinthia, and I know people get nervous when they sit across from Dorinthia. So just know what she's trying to do at all times. Eat at her hand as quickly as you can and as often as you can, and you'll be okay. But definitely test the matchup. Don't just take my word for it. Bravo, Reinar, Levia, those are the 3. I kind of lump them together. Bravo is a little bit tougher. He's probably, besides Chain, probably the toughest matchup, because he takes kind of the most focus, and Anathos swinging for 6 every turn it's a big deal. But you are subbing out all of your reds. Okay, so gone with the protections against Bravo. You get rid of the red Triumphs, get rid of the red War Tunes. You keep the Triumphs for Reinar and Levia because a lot of their cards are exactly 6. So Triumphs are a little bit more effective there. Bravo doesn't have a lot of 6s. He's got 7s, he's got 9s, 11s. He's a beast, obviously. But yeah, you're going full control. Aura control. You want to make sure a good Bravo player, a good Reinar player, Levia player, they're going to swing at your hair or at your auras whenever they get the chance. Okay, so you have to be creative as to how to get cards in your soul and turn on Vestige. Merciful Retribution is one of your best friends in this matchup because every time they blow that up or they destroy a Herald with Phantasm, it goes in your soul and it triggers Vestige, obviously, and they get taken Arcane. So you can't waste your auras. That's the big thing. You want to find a turn where you can get, 2 to 3 auras on the table at the same time. 3 is a tough ask. 2 is relatively doable quite consistently. You don't want to waste your tomes, because if you have more cards, then obviously you can play more things, and that's good. Phantasmaclasm I'll keep in, 2 copies, maybe 1 copy, and that is a Dreamweaver's bait in this matchup, because the 9 raw damage is relevant, right? So, the first one, the hand peeking is great because you can kind of disrupt, especially Bravo. If he's got a handful of reds or a handful of blues and a red, you're like, oh, God, he's got crippling or he's going to dominate it. So you can fix that a little bit easier, which is nice. But yeah, 9 raw damage off of Dreamweavers is always great. But yeah, this is a very different style of game. Instead of just going balls to the wall with aggro, you have to kind of know the matchup, know what your opponent's trying to do, maximize the effectiveness on your auras. Prismatic shields at the same thing. Yeah, practice this style. Like I said, I'm going to try to get as many gameplay videos as I can on the channel. I promise you they're coming. Until they actually do come, I know I'm lying, but I'm going to try to make it a point. Against Reinhardt, you don't really want to run library. I shouldn't say that. I like running library against Reinhardt. But just be careful because he can take advantage of it more than Bravo can. Bravo doesn't have any yellows in his deck. He might have like 3 disables or something like that. But Reinhardt has Blood Rush Bellow. He's got Beast Within. He's got he might be running like Yellow Pack Hunts, Smash Instincts, cards like that. He's going to be running a higher density of yellow than Bravo will. Same with Leviah. Leviah's got a couple of yellows in her deck as well with Beast Withins and stuff. So library is less effective against them than it would be against Bravo. But the earlier the library can come on the table against Bravo, the better you're going to be in the matchup overall. Just because you're going to get those 5-card, 6-card hands with an arsenal, and that's what you want to go for. So sometimes timely library comes down, or that's what determines the matchup. Unfortunately. But with a card that strong, sometimes it's powerful enough to swing. So that's that matchup. Completely different style, aura control. If you've done something differently, I'm interested in these matchups. Leviah is not as hard. You can kind of time walk her into taking some blood debt at the end of the turn or at the end of the game. Jim and I play quite often. And, there's been games where I have just come to a screeching halt, blocking him out because I know that his way of turning off blood debt is going to turn into they're running out. However, he has changed his deck to more control oriented, and I think that deck is going to have a lot more success against Prism than his previous aggro builds. So if anything like that, I haven't tested it, we haven't tested it, but just in my head, the controlling Leviah is going to be a lot more difficult for me to deal with or for Prism to deal with. But yeah, I'll try to jam some matchups with Jim and report back on how we find that matchup. Bolton. Bolton is another one, if you want to just go hard at him and try to eat up his hand, he can't effectively deal that or deal with like 2 cards. He can't handle that. So a lot of the Bolton matchup is, he's going to hit hard. You need to hit harder. He needs a little bit of time to get going. And so you can usually come out the gate firing and getting damage and getting your cards in your soul, setting up for Cataclysm turns that he can't really deal with. The nice part about Bolton is he doesn't have equipment blocks, right? He's got Skullcat and he's got Braveforge Bracers. That's pretty much it. He doesn't want to block with his Tunic, especially early. And then a lot of Bolton players are going to be running Snapdragon Scalers. So he doesn't have that much to soak up. He does run Soul Shields, obviously. But other than that, your threats of 13 to 14 coming at him every turn, that should be enough for Bolton. Timely Arclight Sentinels are great too. If he starts off with Via the Vanguard and charges twice or charges once, whatever it might be, jam Arclight, take the 5. Now whatever he does after that is gone, and he can't go again with his ability, which is a plus. So timely Arclights are great in this matchup. Merciful is great. Be aware though, he does have some 7s. Right, he runs Cataclysms, he runs Bolting Blades, he's going to probably run CNCs as well as a 6. So he does have ways to get rid of your Heralds, more so than Dorinthia does. Phantasmaclasm, another great card in this matchup, because you can kind of see like, oh, hey, you've got Illumina here, now you don't. Or you've got V of the Vanguard here, now you don't, sorry. So yeah, those are pretty much MVPs. This matchup is not particularly hard. There is a video of us playing a long time ago, me and Bob. This was very early in his build, very, very early in my build. We did make some mistakes that people pointed out, but if we were to jam it again, I would feel more comfortable going into this matchup, which we'll try to do. Katsu is a matchup that I have not played a lot of. There's not a lot of Katsu running around in our meta and our local or our kind of team. We don't have, no one's really maining Katsu right now. which is a problem because he's probably going to be everywhere at Road to Nationals. So this is something that I'm very interested in hearing from you guys. If you have tested this matchup extensively, what have you done and you found success with? The problems that I foresee in Katsu. He doesn't care about his hand, right? He can comfortably block with 2 cards a turn and then still have a decent, Kadachi, whatever his 3rd card is or 4th card is. If he's got an arsenal, even more. And he also doesn't care about auras. His Kadachi pokes are just like, oh, here you go. They're all gone. Doesn't matter. So I'm interested to see what that matchup is like. My thought right now, try to outrace him. Go as hard as possible. He's not running a lot of 6s. A lot of Katsu builds are not going to run Command and Conquer. So you're probably safe. All of your auras should be safe. Unless they do some cheeky like Art of War play off of like a Surging Strike. But they usually want to set up those combo plays. Arclight Sentinel I could see being a pretty big deal in this matchup. Shutting down their big combo plays. But I would love to outsource the Katsu matchup to you guys. What have you found that you've liked if you have tested it, or what hasn't worked? Is it a tough matchup? I can see it being a grindy, tough matchup. And then lastly, guys, the mirror is like the Wild West. It's basically comes down to, and I hate, sorry for the knock here. I hate saying that it comes down to whoever drew their stuff, but sometimes that's what it does. Were you able to draw Cataclysm to turn off one of their big phantasms? Were you able to draw Command and Conquer to turn off one of their big phantasms? Who did that first? And is that, that's pretty much the game. There is some nuances stuff but basically it's Swing Herald. Hopefully they don't have a 6 or a 7. Oh, they don't? Okay, 13 damage, soul. Now I'm setting myself up. That's what it comes down to. Don't run library, right? You don't want them to have the benefit. And if they're running library, it's a mistake because they wasted a turn to put it on the table. They wasted an action to put it on the table, and then you can also get the benefit from that. But yeah, it's just a Wild West, gun show there. So that's my guide. I know I didn't cover everybody. Like Kano's not on here. Dash isn't on here. Those are 2 matchups that I particularly feel relatively comfortable with just from what they're trying to do. Dash can't, I know Control Dash is trying to block everything. She doesn't run any 6s. She does have some big defense reactions, but she has to pitch 2 cards in order to get those defense reactions like unmovable on the field. And then pistol pokes are only going to get her so far. None of her items block, so that's good for us as well. So it's just go hard, go fast. And then you should be able to outrace Dash pretty easily. And Kano, we don't have a lot of Kano here. I'm sure if you're watching from Australia or New Zealand, which is crazy. Hey, guys. You guys probably run into a lot more wizards than we do. So that's a matchup that I haven't tested. It is a matchup that I feel pretty confident about going on paper going into. There you go. I'm not really worried about that matchup, but yeah, I didn't cover everybody, but this is my basic outline. Again, this is going to be something that I'm just kind of changing and, as time goes on. A lot of these are subbing out Command and Conquers. So just putting them back in there, maybe, against Katsu, run Command and Conquers to get rid of those flick flacks or whatever it might be. And just trying different things until I figure out something that's comfortable. But I will post this guide in the description below. As usual, guys, if you have any questions, please let me know. Comment, ask questions, or, provide feedback from, your experiences with these cards or these matchups, whatever it might be. I'm always interested in hearing. I tried my best to answer all the comments that were posted on the last video. So please feel free to share your thoughts again. But hopefully there's an episode 3. Hopefully the higher ups at the company decide to renew us again for a 3rd episode. But until that time, guys, thanks for taking the time to watch this video and listening to my ramblings and my musings. But until next time, this has been Ryan with the Roundtable of Wraith, and I'll see you guys later.